is based off of a flow of action in which I start with the desire to move. I then send that signal down through the spinal cord, excite the motor neurons. The excitation of the motor neurons will pass along the motor neuron, leading to depolarization at the motor end plate. If I get enough action there, the voltage-gated sodium channels will open and I get to my threshold. That threshold will then lead to depolarization of the entire fiber, which we refer to as the excitation-contraction couple. This is going to lead to opening of the calcium channels. And as long as I have opening of the calcium channels and enough ATP available to the muscle fiber itself, I will go ahead and have that contraction. The means by which we recruit is based off of the ability to get to threshold. The fiber size that we have within each fiber is going to dictate how easy I am to reach threshold. That is how well can I get recruited. The smaller the diameter, the easier it is to recruit me. The larger the diameter, the harder it is to recruit me. And it develops a continuum of effect within the muscle itself relative to the amount of strength being returned, the amount of tension within each twitch, and the number of twitches that are occurring, all based off of how easy is it to get depolarized. The response that we see is based off of a pattern of summations known as the TREP effect. This is a stepwise increase of strength based off of the multiplicity of recruitment occurring, in which I'm either going to be recruiting that individual motor unit more often, or I'm going to start recruiting more motor units. The strength of the contraction will increase until I reach a plateau. That plateau is the indication of a tectonic contraction, where we have full muscle contraction taking place. The way in which we can go about having this the summation patterns that take place are known as wave, temporal, and spatial. In wave, the stimulus is applied before the twitch relaxes, and we're able to add a twitch to a twitch. This can occur within the single motor unit or across motor units. If it's occurring within a single motor unit, this waving of summations gives rise to temporal summation. This is where I'm increasing the number of twitches within a single motor unit, leading to an increased development of tension. If, however, I'm starting to recruit across motor units, I have spatial summation taking place. This is going to lead to increasing of contraction strength by increasing the cross-sectional area of the muscle that is being recruited. When we talk about summation, we're talking about how the signals of contraction are increasing based off of frequency to the motor units itself and to the muscle itself. If we get a sustained level of action potentials, where the action potentials are arriving in such frequency that we never get to relaxation, we reach tectonic contraction. The summation pattern that will take place starts with twitch, then leads to summated twitch, a TREP of contraction, and then finally the tectonic contraction, in which we have this ever rising level of tension being developed within the fiber, within the fascicle, and then across the muscle itself. The way we see this summation is through what's referred to as the excitation-contraction couple. The excitation contraction couple is the indication of how the action potential spreads from the motor input through the fiber so that the muscle itself will contract as a single unit. So we have the depolarization moment coming down the motor neuron and then spreading through the entirety of the muscle fiber and then passing through the transverse tubules into the sarcoplasmic reticulum to open up the calcium-gated channels. So it's passing through. As it passes through, we get the depolarization moment leading to threshold. As we hit threshold, the voltage-gated calcium channels will open up, releasing the calcium from the cisternae of the sarcoplasmic reticulum and allowing it to move through the sarcoplasmic reticulum and then move into the actual sarcomere itself, interacting with the troponin to allow for the contraction to take place. Now, the rate at which this takes place is based off of the troponin's interaction with calcium, leading to the unbinding of the tropomyosin from the actin, where the fast twitch fibers, the high threshold fibers, will do this movement rather quickly, whereas the slow twitch, low threshold fibers will do it much slower. The way in which the recruitment pattern happens is traditionally through a synchronous recruitment. This means that we're going to be progressively turning on the fibers based off of the need to build tension within the muscle until I reach the amount of force necessary in order to produce the motion required, in which I see a linear progression of low threshold to moderate threshold to high threshold fibers being recruited, leading to the increased total recruitment of the muscle. The way in which this pattern of recruitment occurs is through what's referred to as Henneman's size principle. And so what Henneman's size principle is telling me is that I'm going to move from the easiest to depolarize, the smallest fiber, to the hardest to depolarize, the largest fiber. And it's all about how much membrane do I have to depolarize in order to get that fiber recruited. And I'm going to do this so that I can be as efficient as I possibly can be in an untrained, unused muscle. This goes through a linear progression. However, as the muscle gets recruited more, we cognitively learn the way to send out that recruitment pattern so that I can get to the most efficient means of recruitment possible. So let's take a look at this linear progression. So we're going to start with our synchronous recruitment. So I need to get somewhere, and so I slowly start recruiting. I start recruiting my type 1 low threshold fibers, and as I do that, I start getting a small amount of muscle being recruited, but not enough to get to where I need. Still don't have enough. So now I have to start recruiting up the motor units. And I'm starting to pull in more muscle as I go about, recruiting more fibers, but still not enough to get to where I need. As I start pulling in even larger muscle fibers, higher thresholds, I still not there. I finally get to having enough muscle fibers there in order to meet the demand that is necessary. Now notice, we still have a small section of muscle that is not being recruited, the wedge of the muscle in red. That wedge of the muscle in red becomes important because the amount of muscle that is not being recruited can be recruited at a later time should the necessity to continue to have a sustained contraction remain. That amount of muscle will vary based off of the training status of the muscle and how often the person recruits that muscle. But you will always have a certain amount of muscle not being recruited. If you were to send out such a recruitment level to recruit the entirety of the muscle at once, you would make so much tensile strength within the muscle that one or two things would happen. You would either break the bone at the attachment site, you would avulse the muscle, or you would shred the tendon trying to attach the muscle to the bone. You cannot recruit past the maximum level of strength capacity for the muscle itself, regardless of the anecdotes that you might hear. Mothers cannot lift a car off of the child. Cars weigh more than the record weight of a deadlift.